My next guest is Tony Mann, and Tony is a university lecturer. He loves mathematical games, puzzles. I think he's a wee bit of a maths history expert, and we're going to find out loads, I'm sure, over the next half hour. And he's going to take us back in history to a time when he was at primary school for his first trick. I think, is that right, Tony?
Yes, that's right. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I don't think
Pleasure.
my primary school days has been quite that historical, but they are.
Compared to our last guest, Sydney, I think you and I have definitely got more grey hair than she will have for many years to come.
Indeed, I'm not sure it's a good comparison to make with Sydney because she had that wonderful Rubik's Cube waistcoat, and all I've got is this tie, which is
Oh, I would say that's pretty good, Tony. I've
it's
got
not a
a
picture most of the time.
I've got a t-shirt that says "Trig or Treat." Trig or treat. It's
Oh,
a sort
very
of
good.
Halloween massy one. And Tony, if you go onto Tony's website, I have to say Tony's got a t-shirt on there, which is just if you first time you see it, you'll love it. If you're a pedant, if you're a mathematician, I'm sure it will appeal to lots of people. But I'm not no spoilers there. But loving the tie, Tony. And would you like to tell us? Well, do you want to tell us a wee bit more about yourself before you get into the trick?
Yes, well, I work at the University of Greenwich. I'm very lucky to work in a university with a very diverse community and some outstanding math students. And I should also just like to say I'm very lucky to be in a job where I've been able to work reasonably normally during lockdown, um, possibly working harder than normal, but certainly, my income hasn't been affected. And that's why I think the charities we're supporting here are so important, because I'm very lucky. Many people haven't been so lucky. And these charities are wonderful causes. And I hope that viewers, if they're able to, will support them.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Tony. What does it actually look like? I'm a secondary school teacher, and before the summer, we were doing everything remotely, and that wasn't my favourite thing. I'll admit, I found that quite frustrating. And so, even though there are concerns about being in school and being in a classroom with 30 students, I'm absolutely thriving on that interaction and the live communication of maths in the classroom. I'm delighted to be back like that. What's it been like for you in that sense?
I'm missing that. I mean, all of our lectures are online
Okay.
and pre-recorded. In most, I mean, most of my classes at the university would involve looking over people's shoulders at computer screens, which I
Yeah.
can't do. So
Yeah.
I'm really not at the university very much at the moment, and I miss
No.
that. I'm spending a lot of time talking to a screen full of images with microphones off and cameras off, and
Yeah.
only the chat window persuades me people are actually following, but they are.
Yeah.
But I think it's I mean it's hard for us, but it's much harder for the students. We're missing out on the company, and um, it's difficult times for everybody.
Yeah. Right, okay. So thanks very much for that, and I think lots of the people watching will empathise with the situation there. But I agree with what you're saying, that there are people who are much less fortunate than those of us who are in education and have that stability. So Tony, you're going to show us a trick today.
Okay, I'm going to first of all try to show you my card table, which
There we go. I
really
can
a card
absolutely
table
see
and
that.
isn't quite big enough. So um, yeah, so this is, as I said, is a trick which, or as Chris said, is a trick which I remember from my primary school days. And I've got a pack of cards here. I'm going to shuffle them. Something behind my photographs. So this is a genuine shuffle, I should add. And I'm going to pick out 10 pairs of cards here. And I'm going to ask Chris to choose one of these 10. I'll leave them at you. Hopefully you can just see them all. That's 5 of diamonds, 2 of spades, 4 of diamonds, king of clubs, jack of hearts, 10 of diamonds, 2 of diamonds, 5 of spades, 5 of clubs, 6 of hearts, queen of clubs, ace of clubs, 9 of diamonds, 6 of clubs, 6 of diamonds, 3 of clubs, sorry, 8 of diamonds, 3 of clubs, 6 of diamonds, queen of hearts, and 4 of spades and ace of hearts. So 10 pairs here, if I've counted right.
Yep, and I can see all of those, and
And I'd
I
like
have.
to think of one of these pairs and don't tell me which it is.
Okay, I have chosen and I will keep that to myself for now.
Okay,
And
and gather
is
them
this
all
the
up.
kind of, that's the kind of thing, Tony, that everybody in the group and everybody watching should be doing? Or will the trick reveal my individual set of two cards?
The trick will reveal your individual set of two cards. If other
Yes.
people are watching and can put it in the chat and somebody can tell me what's in the chat, I can do theirs too.
Okay.
But,
Right. So I've picked a set a
right.
pair.
Okay, so I've got to pack up. I would normally ask you to cut them, but obviously you're not here to do that. Do you want to tell me how many cards you'd like to cut, and I'll cut them for you.
Let's go for 6.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to cut the 6 cards on top. I'm going to set them out in a grid, in a sort of random fashion, and I'm trying to do it so they can appear on camera. So I'm marking corners first of all. That's a corner down here. So I'm setting a 4x5 grid, 4 rows, 5 columns.
And when your primary teacher back in the day did this trick, was everyone around the table? Was everyone huddled round, or were there large cards that were stuck on the board, or how did this work for a whole group of primary kids?
To be honest, I don't remember. I'll say in a moment I do remember of it. Now, I haven't made it that very nicely because my table isn't that big enough, but
Okay.
hopefully you can see all the cards there.
Sure can. Yeah.
So I've got 4 rows, top row, second row, third row, and fourth row. Which 2 rows are your cards in? They might both be in the same row, of course.
Row 2 and row 4.
Row 2 and row 4. So I think your cards might be, and I'm getting mad about this because I haven't had my cup of coffee this morning and I'm not very awake yet. I think they are the 2 of spades and the 5 of diamonds.
You got it. I have to say, Tony, you pulled that one out of the bag without your coffee. You didn't even need it. So let's let that sink in for a wee while. In the group chat, just in the chat, people will be sort of speculating as to how you pulled that one out the bag, how you managed to do that. While they're doing that, tell us a wee bit more about the trick and your memories of it.
Well, I remember in primary school, that's my friends and probably particularly John Simpson and Paul Douglas, because we're talking one morning about a phrase which meant nothing to me at all. And this is a sort of catchphrase. I wasn't one of the cool kids. I didn't know what it meant. And it later turned out this phrase was the key to this card trick.
Ah.
So shall I start going through how the trick actually works now?
Yeah, let's have a look at that. I guess people will eventually maybe try and preempt it by putting spoilers in the comments. But you reveal for us how on earth you go about identifying my pair of cards from
Right.
that.
Well,
20.
I'm going to share my PowerPoint slide at this point because that's the PowerPoint. So that's the wrong one, I think.
I'll tell you when it comes up, Tony. There we go. Okay. Oh wow! Look at this. So I did want to. Yeah, this is worth talking about. So before you tell us how this trick works, talk us through some of these folk. I'm sure people will recognise a few of them, and including some Nobel Prize winners. Is that right?
One Nobel Prize winner, yes.
Yeah.
But I actually had a second Nobel Prize winner giving a guest talk to my students this week, but because I couldn't get a selfie with her. Okay, so these are just some of the mathematical superstars that I've met over the last few years. I think I've got one Nobel Prize winner here, 2 Fields medalists, 1 Turner Prize winner, not Turner Prize winner, Turing Prize winner.
Yeah.
So at top centre, we've got Whitfield Diffie, the founder of public key cryptography. Top right, Cedric Vianney, Fields medalist and now a politician. Bottom right is Martin Heurer, Sir Martin Heurer from At that time he was at Warwick, but I think he's now at Imperial. Bottom left is Sir Roger Penrose, who actually, in my student days, I used to have tea with every day because we were in the same department and we were part of the tea set. Top left is not a mathematician, but the great magician Danny de Ortiz, my favourite magician. And in the bottom centre, some of the celebrities who I'm very proud to be appearing on this show today with. Robbie Stoway, Hannah Fry, Bobby Seagull.
Yeah, so people who are expecting to see some more of later on. That's a wee teaser, nicely done. That's like an advert for later on, Tony. Thank you for doing that. So that's a fantastic wee collection. I hope you've got all of these printed out, and they're not just digital photos. I hope these are on your mantelpiece or printed off and on your fridge. They definitely would be if I had copies of these. That's great.
Thanks. Yes. Anyway, so primary school, playground, people are talking about this phrase, and the phrase was David Lovell in Yon Abbey.
Okay.
Which makes very little sense. I mean, I could not understand why people were saying this. And it turns out that you can represent these, if you lay these 5 words out in a grid like this, then they have the property that there is exactly one pair in common between any 2 rows, and there's one duplicate in each row. So this is the key to this card trick. When I set the cards out, I followed the format. So I put the pairs out. So one pair matched the 2 Ds of David, one matched the A of David and the A of Abby, and Chris's ones, I think, were the 2 Es of Lovell and Abby.
That's right.
And if we're doing this trick, you can lay them out in any order you like, just putting them out in pairs and making it look as random as possible. And that's really all there's to it.
So it's a mnemonic.
Yes. And when I saw this trick, I have to say, my immediate reaction was, so what? This is, it's very, it's obvious that there must be how it's done, in that there must be some setup so that they don't, so there's always one letter, each pair of rows specifies a pair of cards uniquely. And I didn't think that, in my primary school days, I didn't think that was very exciting. It isn't an obvious piece of mathematics that this is possible. The nice part is the mnemonic. And then I found in a magic book, in fact 2 magic books, I found this trick. John Scarney's Scarney Card Tricks, which is a wonderful book full of many mathematical tricks, calls it Houdini's double talk card trick, and says it was done by Houdini and by Herman the Great and by other great magicians of the golden age of mathematics in late Victorian times. They generally got 10 people to choose pairs and then identified each pair, I think.
All right, okay.
Which is obviously no, the same thing. But Scarney gives the mnemonic Matas, Romer, Pepit, Lollies, which
is harder for me to remember, if I'm being honest.
And seems a bit strange. And then Jim Steinmeier has written a series of books called Impossibilities, and in one of them, Ensuing Impossibilities, he gives a version of this trick. His is, as you'd expect from one of the great magicians, slightly more sophisticated, but essentially the same trick. And he calls it the Tuzot Sensu mystery. And here's a mnemonic which has 4 different words from 4 different languages. And so I'm curious to know, where did David Lovell in Yon Abbey actually come from? Because it is actually almost a sensible mnemonic. I mean, it's 4 English words. Okay, one of them is a name, which isn't normally spelled quite that way, but it's easy to remember, and it's English. And can we find other mnemonics? So I guess that's the maths bit. What other mnemonics might be possible?
Yeah. Actually, the Jim Steinmeier his Impossibilities books were mentioned already during this 24-hour maths magic show. Ron Lancaster was on sometime early in the morning and showed a few of those. So that's a double thumbs up for that guy and his collection of books.
Indeed, and the new one is specifically written for Zoom performance.
Oh,
Called Virtual Impossibility.
that seems very, very topical. Great.
Well, actually, most of them are possible over the internet anyway.
Yep. Okay. Wow. And yeah, that's great. And so these, I guess, would you ever challenge students to think about creating a smaller version, maybe a smaller mnemonic that might work, or a larger version? I mean, how? I guess it must be really challenging to make them larger. But is it possible to come up with a similar trick based on the same principles, but in a condensed version, and give that as a challenge?
It looks like you've been looking at my next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, which is exactly what I'm looking for. I mean, so basically, could we do it for dollar numbers? We've done it for 10 pairs in 4 rows and 5 columns, and clearly we could do it for any set of n rows and n plus 1 columns and n times n plus 1 cards.
Okay.
And it might be easier to come up with mnemonics for small ones. So if I run through a few simple cases, the first case would be n equals 1. This involves 1 pair of cards in 1 row, and I'll do a trick for you now, Chris. If I switch to my, sorry. Sorry, I'm doing the wrong thing. I want to stop sharing my screen, don't I?
Yeah, so you're going to switch to the... There we go.
So here is 1 pair of cards. I'd like you to remember any one of these pairs of cards and to lay them out randomly in a row, 1 row, in 2 columns. And if you tell me which row your cards are in, I'll put the cards up.
It's actually in the first row this time, Tony.
I think your cards might be the 4 of spades and the 5 of hearts.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, there you are. And this, to be honest, is not a very good trick.
No, that's not impressive on any level. I know you claim that the trick that you saw in primary school disappointed you at the time, but it stuck with you. It did stick with you. So there was something.
It stuck with me, but it just shows what a good judge of card tricks I am. This is the trick. It was standard in late Victorian times. All the gate magicians did it. Houdini did it. Professor Hoffman did it, and I thought it wasn't very good. But anyway, to do the 2 cards, you need a mnemonic, and there are some English words of 2 letters that work. And these, one might be, for example, the word "a" or "a." It's spelled "aa." So that's the easy version to start with.
Yeah.
But we can go on a bit, and n equals 2, 3 pairs of cards, 2 rows, 3 columns, and it's not difficult to come up with phrases for this. Without really any thought at all, I came up with odd pop. I think was one of my first ones. But you can do add, virtually any 2-letter word, any 3-letter word with a pair of letters, and then you can find another one. So I'm sure you can do better than that, and that will work. N equals 3, you think might be a bit harder. In fact, it isn't that hard. Now we've got 3 rows, 4 columns, 12 cards, 3 4-letter words, and 1 example. I mean, it's not pretty sensible on it, but bell, booze, eggs, referring to the inventor of the telephone and his dislike of certain breakfast foods. But it isn't too difficult to come up with a mnemonic for 12 cards. So we then get to the case we've just done, the David Lovell in One Abbey, 4 or 5-letter words, and I haven't tried very hard because I think this is probably rather difficult.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't difficult, I can't imagine why Houdini would have used Pepit Romer, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And Steinmeier would use his one. So I'd be very interested if somebody were to come up with a good one. I have to say I haven't spent much time thinking about it myself, but I may be being pessimistic, and I don't know how one. And I would really like to know how far back the David Lovell one goes. It obviously goes back a long time because it was in my primary school days. But so the next case would be 5 rows of 6 cards, 30 cards, 15 pairs. You can do that with a pack of cards. That would be very normal. And I haven't even thought about that because I assume that it's not very easy.
I think it's obviously as you ramp up the number of cards, it must get increasingly fiendish. There'll be people who'll be able to do this using coding. Maybe do you think that might be that is the way forward for this?
Definitely.
Or people who just love these sort of number puzzles. And I guess the audience today for the 24-hour Maths Magic Show, there'll be people in there who absolutely will know this. Someone's put in another version of the mnemonic that used for the original trick. Mutus nomen dedit caucus. That's from a lampshade. So thanks very much for that one. And I think someone else agrees that they've seen that one before. So there you go. But no one in real time is brave enough to come up with the one for an even larger grid. And you don't want that anyway, do you, Tony? Because your camera couldn't cope with the extra rows of cards.
Indeed, I'd have to get a proper setup for that.
You should have just said that was the reason you haven't done it yet, rather than saying that you would have found it tricky.
Yes, right, yes.
That's what a real showman would have done.
Yes, well, as I said, I didn't think this was a very good trick when I first saw it. So was my understanding of showmanship.
And how many disappointing lessons from primary school can you still remember? I'm fascinated with the idea that you say this thing didn't impress me and that's why I remembered it. I can't. That really blows my mind, because I think all the things that I think I remember from primary school are moments that like fascinated me and wowed me. But this is something that you think seemed mundane or seemed not that wonderful or magical. That's a really interesting way to have arrived at this trick.
Yes, well, I mean, I should say that I haven't actually been thinking about this ever since I left primary school.
It's not consumed you.
I don't know when it came back to me. It might have been when I read Carney's trick and recognised it and remembered the phrase. But I mean, the phrase certainly stuck with me.
Yeah.
And incidentally, I asked a couple of my primary school friends who I'm friends with on Facebook, and one of them remembered the trick pretty well perfectly, except that he tried shuffling cards in the middle, which doesn't actually help it. and the other has no memory of it at all.
Well,
I should also have said, and I really should stress this, my memory is very unreliable. This may all be my imagination, gilded, etc. But that's how I remember it. Do I remember anything else from primary school? A few things. I was football obsessed.
Yeah.
My team were good in these days. I've never been since. Fairman Athletic.
You're the Pars.
I'm a Pars man, yes.
There you go. So what is the connection with Dunfermline?
I lived there. I was born there. I was born in Edinburgh, but lived in Dunfermline from the age of 3 and was a passionate Pars supporter in my childhood. Saw them in the European Cup Winners' Cup semi-final.
There you go.
Many European quarterfinals and European nights, Scottish Cup final.
This is I had no idea. I hadn't really asked you where you were brought up or anything like that. And so we've got this is like the Scottish section of the 24-hour Maths Magic Show, because you've got Tony from a Dunfermline boy, I'm going to call him. I'm in Ayrshire. We have after I finish hosting, we're going to be handing over to Katie Oldfield, who is Maths Week Scotland coordinator, and we also had Eliane on earlier on, and so this seems like we've got a wee bit of a Scottish flavour going on here. So even though you're down in Greenwich, Tony, still one of us.
Still looking for the Pars results every week.
Excellent, of course. My brother-in-law is actually a Dunfermline fan as well. So yeah.
So where in Ayrshire are you from?
I'm from New Milnes, which is a wee town in East Ayrshire, and the town next to it is Darvel, where Sir Alexander Fleming was born. So penicillin country and Robert Burns country, I guess. But I'm not sure about any mathematical connections in the area that I live in, really.
My mother came from Girvan,
Oh, right, okay. Wow.
and she once danced with Sir Alexander Fleming.
What? That is a story. You can't just tell us that and not tell us a wee bit. How on earth did she end up dancing with Sir Alexander Fleming?
I don't know, at a university dance, I think. There's a photograph somewhere.
I think.
That's
I'm
all I
sorry.
know.
Wow, I'm sorry to say, Tony. I think that maybe trumps some of your Nobel Prize winner photographs as well. That is amazing.
Yeah, I think it probably does actually. Yes.
You didn't dance with Roger Penrose, did you? No.
No, I don't think. I think that was probably a very good thing for all concerned.
Right. Anything that you'd like to sort of direct people to, your website, or anything that you'd like to plug, just as we wrap this bit up, Tony?
Really, just to recommend the rest of today's show. There's going to be lots of wonderful things on it. I do have a blog, but it's not maintained as well as it should be. tonysmaths.blogspot.com. And I aim to write something every month, and I think I've managed something every year so far, so it's not.
So 2 times less efficient than you meant to be, but still, your blog is in the chat, so people can see that now and click on there and see these annual updates from you.
Yes. But this is a wonderful day, and there's so many wonderful things to come, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the day. Once I've had my cup of coffee.
And you've earned it, Tony. Thank you so much for being with us, for showing us your tricks, for being able to switch between your screens. It all went smoothly. So thank you very much, and we'll see you later.
Thank you, Chris. Bye for now.
Bye, Tony.